Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2002 prequel, The Scorpion King. And no, I'm not reviewing The Scorpion King 2 or 3 or 4, fuck those movies, I don't even want to bother with them. I have enough on my plate as it is. And this is one I wasn't planning on reviewing, but I had not seen the film in a while, and I was curious about it, because it's a prequel to The Mummy Returns, technically. Also, out of all of these Scorpion King sequels, the Scorpion King movies, the first one is the only one that really honestly has any sort of connection to the first movie. Or the second film. Really, the second film. To the franchise. And I think it was like the first film that The Rock was like the lead in, I think, was this one. And I wanted to check it out for The Rock, for Chuck Russell, who is one of my favorite directors. He directed the Blob remake, which I have right there. I can get my thumb to go the right direction, right there. Which is one of my favorite horror films. And, he did a film called Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which I thought was pretty underrated. So, I was like, hey, let's give this a watch. And it wasn't great. I'm going to say that. I wouldn't call The Scorpion King underrated. Well, a little bit. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be, but it's not a great film. I wouldn't even call it a good movie. It was an okay movie. It was a decent film. I thought it was a time waster. I thought it was just okay. It was a very mediocre movie, but it could have been worse. And I thought this was a much better Conan movie, for instance, than the Conan the Barbarian remake from 2011. And this was, even according to IMDb, and I don't know if that's true or not, but they were saying things like the producers and the writers, like they meant this to be kind of an unofficial adaptation of Conan. And you can kind of see it. You really can. And there's some fun to be had with this movie. That's the thing. I had some fun with it. I personally find this film to be a time waster for the action and for The Rock. For a few other cast members. Kelly Hu, I thought, was nice to look at and also delivered a really good performance as the sorceress. Now, the film is directed by Chuck Russell, who I personally thought did a really good job directing the film. He had a $60 million budget, which is a pretty decent amount of money for this type of film. And he used the budget well. The action sequences had a lot of, I keep using the word energy, but, maybe spark is better. They had a nice spark to them. You could tell Chuck Russell he knows what he's doing. He knows how to direct a lot of these action sequences and the sword fights. There's not a lot of shaky cam. There's not a lot of quick cut editing. There's not a lot of that, which I appreciated. I think a lot of the film's problems lie with the screenplay by Stephen Sommers, William Osborne, and David Hayter, the Guyver himself from Guyver 2 Dark Hero. And of course, a lot of people remember him as a Solid Snake, but I remember him the most as Guyver. Now, the script, the problem is the story is just generic as fuck. It is such a stale, bland, generic story. It's just like, who gives a shit, really? Oh, okay, The Rock is the last of his kind, or not really. Well, he ends up being the last of his kind because the other two last of his kind get killed off. And he was hired to kill this corrupt king, this guy named Memnon, played by Stephen Brand, who is used to call him Stephen Bland, because he's this unbelievably bland villain. Like, this guy is absolutely forgettable. He's a saltine cracker who has like fire swords and a British accent. There's nothing fucking to this guy. He's fucking white bread personified. And this Memnon guy is ruthless, and so The Rock believes that he and his other 3 remaining Acadians are going to be hired to kill the sorcerer, who is giving this guy, giving this walking, breathing, living, saltine cracker of a conqueror, giving him an advantage over these other factions and these other groups of people in this ancient world, before the time of the pyramids. And so, of course, you find out the sorcerer is not a sorcerer, it's a sorceress, and things go south. Shit hits the fan, the other Acadians get killed, and eventually the Rock takes the sorceress and tries to get Memnon to follow him, but that doesn't turn out too well. And the Rock also, his character is Matthias. He's the same character from The Mummy Returns. And he goes in and he encounters, this comic relief guy who is fucking annoying, played by Grant Heslov, who played like Aprid or, Acrid, because he was foul-smelling and fucking shit. So annoying. He was like Rob Schneider. He was like a Middle Eastern Rob Schneider. Just shut the fuck up. The best things about that character, the best scenes of that character was when The Rock punched him in the face and knocked him out. Should have knocked him out of the fucking movie. Michael Clarke Duncan was in it briefly. He was fun as Balthazar. I kind of likened him to the same kind of character that John Amos played in The Beastmaster, just without the S&M outfit. And there really wasn't a lot of other actors and actresses. I mean, Bernard Hill played Phylos, who's like this kind of inventor guy who he was all right. But it wasn't really a lot else in terms of the characters. The Rock, it's his first acting role. He does a great job with the physical stuff. That's mainly what he's asked to do, is be the physical presence, and I think he does a good job with that. And going back to the plot, it's just all leading up to overthrowing Memnon. That's really what it is. That's all it really is. The Rock and his ragtag band of heroes doing whatever they can to overthrow the tyrannical ruler Memnon. That's about it, really. At least there's some cool stuff. I mean, there's a nice one-liner The Rock says when he shoots an arrow at Memnon, who has these fire swords, and The Rock, because he pulls this arrow out of his back and shoots it at Memnon. He says, "Catch this," and he gets it right in the chest and goes flying off the top of the pyramid. And then there's this explosion that happens with this gunpowder, and he just flies into the explosion. So that was pretty cool. I mean, there's some nice fight choreography. There's some cool stuff near the end. When The Rock first faces off with Memnon, he's facing off with him in a room full of cobras. The back and forth between The Rock and Kelly Hu, I thought was actually was really well done. I thought that was pretty good. And when there are sword fights and there are action, it's fun. I mean, that's the thing. It's a fun movie. It's a fun time waster, but I wouldn't call it a film I'm going to watch over and over again or anything like that. Mainly because it's just, you got The Rock, you got some nice bits of swordplay, you got some nice looking women, and that's really about it. Really, action, some nice looking, women, and The Rock. As the story isn't much of anything. John Debney's score is all right. It's there. It's nothing super memorable or spectacular. John R. Leonetti's cinematography, once again, is serviceable. The editing by Greg Parsons and Michael Tronick, at times it's trying a bit too hard to be edgy. John Debney's score also suffers from early 2000s itis, where it's got the hard rock score. It just doesn't really age very well, and I don't know if it's aged badly or just bad, period. It's just like, it's stock, generic music. Some of this music, especially the beginning, sounded like something you would hear for like the entrance theme for some shitty jobber wrestler around the time. Just like dun-dun, 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 dun-dun. Oh my god, here comes the Black Scorpion. But oh man, but there are worse ways to spend your time than with the Scorpion King. I know this isn't much of a review, but this is not much to say about the Scorpion King. You got The Rock, who's this big muscly wrestler turned actor. He's there to be an imposing presence, and he pulls it off well. He does a good job wielding a sword and using his fists. You got Kelly Hu, who is looking drop dead gorgeous as the sorceress. You got Memnon, who's a fucking saltine cracker of a villain. And that would have improved the film, in my opinion, if it had a stronger villain that actually loved the hate. Not a villain I just hated because he sucked dick. You got an annoying comic relief character. You got those other, bands of factions and people like that and so on that team up with The Rock to take out Memnon. It's fast-paced for the most part. It really wasn't that boring. I think there was a cool scene where The Rock, Matthias does his best Rambo impression. That was actually kind of cool. Where he's hiding behind this sand waterfall and grabbing these people and taking them out one by one in this cave. There's some enjoyment to be had with the Scorpion King, but you might as well call it the Mediocre King because it is a really very mediocre movie. It's not a film that pissed me off or anything, because I've seen much worse sword and sorcery flicks than this. I would put this in the same vein as something like Call the Conqueror with Kevin Sorbo. That was a time waster for me as well. That had a sorceress in it, and and a big muscly guy with a sword. So it's the same kind of thing. I kind of have a soft spot for sword and sorcery movies anyway, so maybe that's a part of it. That's part of it as well. But you can do much worse than Scorpion King. You can watch something like Deathstalker 4, Duel of the Titans, or some shit. At least this has production values. At least it has The Rock, and he's a likable enough character. And at least you have, Kelly Hu's sorceress character, who is Cassandra. And, the movie did pretty well in the box office. It made $165 million on a $60 million budget. So it made a profit. Apparently Universal thought people were keen on this film because they made 3 direct-to-video sequels. That were essentially prequels to this movie, where you had actors who were playing a young Rock who looked nothing like The Rock, but hey, that's direct-to-video logic for you. But yeah, I've talked enough about the film. I've just been trying to, increase the running time a bit, but I don't have much else to say. I really don't. Except if I was going to rate the film out of 5 stars, I would give The Scorpion King 3 out of 5. Like I said, it's an average film. It's an average sword and sorcery flick. There's been better, but there's also been worse. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.